Let's talk about how confusing it can be when a narcissistic person says, I miss you. So you're in a narcissistic relationship, and odds are you are in one or have been in one if you're watching this. Not surprisingly, the relationship is difficult, all the things, right? The selfishness, the anger, the passive aggression, all of it, right? The entitlement, the invalidation, the gaslighting, and the manipulation. You know the drill, right? And you're confused, and you're on edge, and you're vigilant, and you're exhausted, and you're sad. But since most people don't quite get what they're up against in one of these relationships for a long time, or even if you do actually get what you're up against, for a lot of reasons, it may feel like it's a relationship you can even step away from or leave from or fully disconnect from. And then, for some reason, I don't know, you're in this relationship, maybe you take a trip, or maybe they take a trip, or maybe you have to move someplace else, or you have to take a new job. You may still be in the relationship, but are not in the same place, right? In the same physical place. And then the narcissistic person says to you, I miss you. And you may be on the other side of the phone thinking, huh? You may even look surprised if they say it to you on a video call, or perplexed as you stare at it and it's a text message. So what's the narcissistic I miss you all about? Let's talk about that, sort of the anatomy of the narcissistic I miss you. Well, let's first start talking about what does it really mean to miss someone. I mean, it means different things to different people. You may miss your routine with somebody. You may miss being physically close to them. You may miss seeing their face in person. You may miss talking to them as regularly. You may miss doing stuff with them in person. You may simply miss their presence. Now, all of this gets wonky as hell in narcissistic relationships when they say that they miss you. So let's say what could be happening, because it's tricky. First, you got to remember that many, if not most, narcissistic people are what we call rejection sensitive. And so meaning that anything that feels like rejection, they react strongly to. In the case of folks who are more vulnerable narcissistic patterns, there's downright fears of abandonment, right? And so for all the up and the down and the all around and the bad behavior of the relationship, narcissistic people are not only very insecure, but they also don't do well with abandonment or rejection, and certainly the loss of their supply. So their I miss you, saying I miss you to you, may be related to those deep-seated rejection and abandonment wounds, as well as missing the supply you bring into their lives. Second piece to this is that narcissistic people don't have very much self-awareness or self-reflective capacity. They pretty much, everything they've got is sort of, they view the world through the lens of me and what is this about me? And if they do have some of that reflection, self-reflection, they wouldn't put themselves in the vulnerable position of coming clean about it, because that would bring up shame, right? So that means that I miss you may actually really be communicating the I miss that you make my life easier. I miss that there is someone who kind of does what I need them to do. I miss the place, maybe you're home together or the office together where I'm kind of in charge, or where you put up with my shit. They're not in touch with these specifics, right? But the missing for many narcissistic people is that perhaps the rest of the world doesn't part the seas the way it happens for them with you at home, because of the unhealthy control dynamics and how those dynamics kind of get locked in these relationships. It may also relate to the familiarity and a partner or family member who is surviving in this narcissistic relationship by fawning. And again, that may simply make the narcissistic person's lives easier. That's what's being missed. But since this is never articulated, it comes out as this broad I miss you statement. And you may think like, what the hell does this person miss? Like, all they do is complain about what I'm doing wrong all the time. They're really not happy with the situation of their lives. They're constantly poking and baiting in the relationship. Like, what do they miss? Like, I'm always getting it wrong. Well, if they tried all their poking and baiting and all their other behaviors in the real world, it's not going to work, right? Or if you aren't there, like let's say you're the one who went away and they're still at home, then they don't have someone to regulate with, right? There's no one that they can throw their tantrum with, because either they're alone or they might not be able to do it with someone else who's around, like a friend. Now, the third is that I miss you can feel like a bit of a twisted Hoover, and a statement on the fact that you, like I just said, are how they regulate. You know, for all their bad behavior when you're together in the same place, a strange melancholy can overtake the narcissistic person when you leave or that they leave. Narcissistic people are not psychopathic. I can't put too fine a point on it. They're related but very different issues, right? Narcissistic people need people. Yeah, maybe it's supply, but they need it. And so their I miss you could mean that they're trying to pull you back in, because your physical distance may feel like they're losing their pacifier and their emotional punching bag. But then there is another issue, is that the I miss you can mess with your head. It can magnify the self-doubt, the sense that, I think I'm reading this wrong, they miss me. We just needed some distance so they could appreciate me. I fully understand why you would think that, right? But you got to be careful, because you might have already done the work. You may have radically accepted and got it all figured out. But when that I miss you comes at you, you may think, oh, okay, maybe we can unpack some of the stuff that was going on while we were still in the same place. And I can tell them how I feel and what I need. Like, you might sort of feel like, okay, they're not in the same space. You might feel more courageous. It's probably not going to go well. You're going to be back in that sort of cycle and the shame. They may lash out. They may say once again that you're demanding, you're selfish, that you're the problem. The I miss you is not opening a door to change and repair. It's very likely a neurotic conflict within the narcissistic person who may be using you to regulate and needs you to regulate, but would never want to admit that to you. Lots of people fall into the I miss you mud, thinking that this is a new chance, but being reminded that it's not. This I miss you mess, it can be part of a classical Hoover, especially after a breakup or an argument, and can definitely lead people to the thinking of like, well, they miss me, so now they do see. They see all the wonderful things I brought to them, their lives, right? A person missing you isn't necessarily them getting clarity about all that you are in the relationship, especially with a narcissistic person. Their missing you may very well be them missing whatever purpose, role, or hole you filled for them. But this belief that now they see me clearly can lead you to get back into it or open up the same old toxic conversations and have to reset a bit in your healing process. I miss you can feel like healing words of being seen or cherished, that our presence mattered. And it can feel like magic when you are in a narcissistic relationship, where you feel none of those things when you're together. You may have gone through all sorts of terrible arguments at the time of goodbye, when the two of you are going your separate ways, and then even get the I miss you. That abandonment stuff, that very sensitive piece for many narcissistic people, means that narcissistic folks are not at goodbyes. And the suspiciousness coupled with insecurity may mean that they might even think that you're going to meet someone better. They do think like that. It's not processed, but it's in there. You're going to meet something better while you're away, or do something bad. There's that projection while they are away. And all of this gets very messy and confusing. You may be so exhausted and confused by all of it that you may actually start feeling better once the narcissistic person has left, or you have left, or the two of you are apart. So when they say, "I miss you," you may even feel this creeping sense of guilt or discomfort that like, ooh, I don't really miss them. Word of advice? Unless you are in the mood for a very, very big argument, don't say the "I don't miss you" part out loud. Another piece of advice, don't call them out and say, "You don't miss me," or "You wouldn't treat me so badly." If you do go there, then plan on an afternoon of rage, gaslighting, anger, petulant tantrums, or the silent treatment, or all of the above. The whole "I miss you" paradox of a narcissistic relationship can make the relationship feel healthier and strangely more connected and loving when you are apart from them than when you are together in the same place. But if you recognize it as them using you to regulate their insecurity, their rejection sensitivity stuff, as well as the fact that you probably have made their lives quite a bit easier, it makes more sense. Now, it doesn't feel good to recognize that they may not miss you per se, but rather what you make possible for their lives and how they can regulate themselves with you around. The key to unlocking and understanding narcissism is that they are always the center of their story. So missing you is really about them. Thanks again.